Let's go! We have some QB footage to talk about today, and comment down below, who do you think will actually take the first snap versus Florida State? We're also going to talk about Mike Denbrock hitting the podium today, sharing some very interesting information. And right off the jump here, we get a nice little pass to Cole Taylor after the play action fake. And right here, we get a low throw from Jayden Daniels when it comes to his intermediate passing work here. So this is Cole Taylor, right tackle Miles Frazier. Right guard Miles Frazier. Right tackle is Anthony Bradford. This is Garrett Dellinger. Very interesting, doing the dead ball snap. I know Fitzgerald West does that as well. Left guard Tremont Shorts, and at left tackle you have Will Campbell. And it's very interesting that with the ones, Noah Cain and Josh Williams rotated. As Jayden Daniels and Garrett Nussmeier rotated with the ones in this drill. Now, this throw right here is very interesting. As many of you know, Jayden Daniels has been working out with Jordan Palmer, one of the best QB coaches in the country. And right here, this ball does tend to not be thrown as hard as he possibly could throw this. And obviously, this ball tends to be low. He had a completion to Jeray Jenkins in the intermediate game, in the spring game, that was also a little low like that one, but once again, nothing to be too concerned about. But now Garrett Nussmeier comes in, and once again, there's Josh Williams right there. Your receivers, BTJ, Kayshawn, and Malik. Jack Besh still not practicing, but what was very interesting is number 86 is Mason Taylor, a true freshman tight end, getting some reps in there. Very fun stuff. Here's Noah Cain, and here's Garrett Nussmeier hitting Kayshawn on a wonderful out route. Look at that. That's just absolutely beautiful. Not playing any audio. Some of that is because they are playing music, but also so you can hear these wonderful golden pipes of mine, because it's the season. I'm just getting fired up actually seeing some great footage here from Tiger Details. Now, with Carter Sheridan in the foreground, we move along here to the second-ish unit. Now, once again, this is just the second unit in name. These are just individual, not individual drills, but obviously 2-minute drill here to get the juices flowing at practice. Don't get too carried away. I don't think Miles Brennan is out of the quarterback race whatsoever. Nick Storrs, Armani Goodwin, right guard is Cardell Thomas, right tackle. Here is Cam Wire. Charles Turner getting the second-team reps at center. And, of course, there's our guy, Emory Jones, already right there at left guard, and Marcus Dumerville here at left tackle with Miles Brennan at QB. So, obviously, it is very interesting that Nuss and Jayden, just based on people who attend a good bit of the practices, they're the ones that seems to be separating and getting more of the ones rep. That wasn't the best ball right there by Miles, but then again, the receiver also fell. There's John Emery, who I think is going to have a pretty solid year, and now we get to see Walker Howard. It does seem like Nuss and Jayden are still making a lot of the noise at QB right now, but once again, I don't know what it is. This gut feeling of mine just keeps saying Miles is going to be the guy. I have no idea why exactly I feel this way. Now, we do see the wide receivers working out in the background, and you're going to see some QB drills in just a second. But for me, I feel as if there's still not a lot of clarity. And we then get to what Mike Denbrock had to say in his offensive coordinator press conference. There wasn't a ton of specificity in those press conferences, and that's a good and bad thing because they're obviously still evaluating. But for me, I just don't think that the coaches have really felt that a QB has just clear-cut separated themselves just yet either. So all those things, very interesting stuff. Obviously, Mike Denbrock also being the tight end coach. He also talked about his background being an offensive line coach, and there were a lot of questions about the offensive line. He also stressed how much he hates turnovers. I think every coach has in the past as well. But, as of right now, Denbrock's press conference didn't really, say too much other than, continuing with the idea that a mobile quarterback does give you more options, but you don't necessarily need to be mobile. Now in the background, you see Kayshawn making this catch once again, still wide receiver drills, obviously working on getting a jam or getting off a jam from a corner. So you want to be as violent as you can to get those arms off of you so the DB can't get his hands on you and then, go out there and make a catch. So now we're really looking at the quarterback individual drills. And in the background, you see, each group doing their own little thing here. And obviously, this is just a simple rollout passing drill. And once again, this is competing against air. Football is more complicated than this. But I still stand by that if you just strip everything away from these quarterbacks and you take away all the experience of all these quarterbacks, it looks like Garrett Nussmeier has thrown the best ball since spring. And that's just my personal eye test, but still it's not something that just where it's like just so unbelievably clear, like we're watching Aaron Rodgers throw the football. But as you see, Nuss just throws a beautiful ball. That first ball from Jayden was really good. This one was a little wobbly. You could see the receiver right here in this drill. Sometimes I think Jayden just tries to guide the ball in instead of just chunking it. And you could just see this on this rollout. Just right out of the hand. But as long as it's on target. So, yeah, it's very interesting. But you'll see Jayden throw an absolute strike here in a second. There's Hey sending me a snap. There's one from Miles Brennan. That ball seemed to die down just a little bit. Good ball right there from Walker. And here's Jayden. Watch this ball. There you go. It's a little better. And then in the background, you see more individual drills happening. Jalen Davis-Robinson in the background. Pretty interesting corner prospect for LSU going into next year. Let's freaking go. One more here from Nuss. That was a beautiful ball. Now, obviously, I know we're focusing on just the QBs here, but in the background, we now get to see some defensive back drills. That obviously is Joe Fouché high point in the football here. And now let's talk about DBs. Number 19 right there is Jordan Allen, true freshman right there. And this is Matthew Langlois and Jay Ward. Obviously, high point in the football, catch it with your hands. Really fun stuff. And I know these individual drills are not the absolute funnest thing to watch, but this is what a lot of the viewing portion of practice is like. But I want to talk about this position group right here. This is the Jack linebacker group, so the standing outside linebacker, and obviously you're used to seeing number 8 be B.J. Ojulari, but that is not the case. That is Desmond Little going from number 59 to number 8. Once again, that single-digit number, it matters. So Little takes over the number 8 uniform. That's Princeton Malbrew, a walk-on and outside linebacker. It's a very interesting player. I've seen him do quite a few interviews, but obviously, the guy in this group is B.J. Ojulari, and you didn't see him there in the number 18 uniform. So, and also Xavier Carter, number 17. And we move over here to the defensive tackles. Obviously, you guys know number 0, and right here, it's Jacobian Guillory alongside Makai Wingo. And in the background, you see number 91, Kels Bush. Very interesting walk-on defensive tackle from Edna Carr. And number 95 right there is actually Taiji Hill. And if you actually watched Edna Carr and some of Taiji Hill's clips, you'll occasionally see number 91 make some plays. Kels Bush, very, very interesting walk-on DT. But, for the most part, you're inside interior defensive lineman, depending on how they want to actually line up. Your alignment is actually going to be more than likely some combination of Jaquelin Roy and Mason Smith and their backups, Jacobian Guillory and Makai Wingo. It's going to be really hard to crack that group. Number 81 in the background is Bryce Langston. Now, this is something that you can actually take away from these practices. And it's not something too much to take away from, but just the way that they're actually divvying up these position groups on the front, it's telling you one very critical thing, okay? When you look at this drill, it's not necessarily who's running the drill, but who is not actually running the drill. You see back here, 3 defensive ends, okay? This is Ali Gay, this is Savion Jones, and this is Quincy Wiggins. Now, why is that relevant? Well, it's relevant because LSU is essentially telling you right now that they are not planning on running a tight front. Now, what is a tight front in particular? Well, a tight front is your traditional Arandian front of 3 interior thicker players running the 3 down defensive line roles and 1 standing outside linebacker. So think Tyler Shelvin in the middle, Rashard Lawrence, and Glenn Logan or Neil Farrell at one of those defensive tackle spots. That was the last time LSU ran tight front under Aranda. And, before that, you can see some other tight fronts. I'm showing you a photo of one right now. But in the LSU spring game, they did not run tight front, right? They ran more of a traditional 4-man gap alignment, right? Now, once again, I just use tight front. There's a lot of different terms for 3-4 versus 4-3 alignment. But this is actually what UCLA does defensively. They have a standing outside linebacker, but it's essentially a 4-man front. If this were a tight front, now, normally this was actually a passing down play. So normally if this was like 1st and 10, this defensive tackle would be on the inside shoulder of the guard, or this defensive tackle would be on the inside shoulder of the guard. Right here, though, they are in 2-3 techniques right here, so it is a little bit different. But if this were a tight front on a running down, this player would be right here. This player would be head up on the nose, and this player would be right here, okay? Or it could be the other way, right? Where this player lines up right here, this player lines up right here, and then this outside linebacker being the standing outside linebacker role as well. So that's, the major difference. That is a very simplified version. Once again, there's different play calls, different strength calls, weaknesses, all that good stuff. But let me actually show you this really quickly, okay? You guys just saw this image a minute ago. This is a Dave Aranda tight front, but obviously you see Devin White, so this is a little bit older. And you see right here, you have a 4-eye, a 0, and a 4-eye. So 3 thicker defensive tackles and a standing outside linebacker, and you have a linebacker slash nickel creeping up right here as well. So this is where it gets really interesting, and we'll do more videos on this as we move forward. This is actually Matt House's defense of 2018, and you see they're in tight front. 2 4-eyes and a straight-up nose. So this is what Matt House did last time, but last year in Kansas City, and this one to get a passing down, they ran what we're seeing LSU do right now. A standing outside backer, 2 DTs, and a defensive end line up to the outside shoulder. So the main difference to me in what Aranda and Matt House did in 2018 was that this defensive end was lined up on the inside shoulder of this tackle and was a thicker player. Think of the mold of Mason Smith, Jaquelin Roy, and so on and so on. But now, mostly because of how their personnel looks, this player right here is more of the Ali Gay, Savion Jones type of build. And that's why it's very key to see the differences in who is lined up where, and just based on how the drills are actually lined up right now with so essentially they're running the same front that LSU ran last year. Obviously it's a little bit different because BJ more often than not is not in a 3-point stance. He is standing, But the responsibilities of a four-man front that LSU ran last year is kind of sort of more similar to what they're going to do this year than what they did with the Randa. Now, this is telling me right here is LSU is going to do what they did in the spring game with their front, having one defensive end have his hand in the dirt and the other standing outside linebacker be in a 2-point stance. Now, once again, that's what they did in the spring, and just based on how they were broken up in that drill just a minute ago, I think that's what they're going to do, and we'll see how it goes. Now we see Mike Jones. Obviously, you guys are very familiar with him, and there he is in his new number 6 uniform. And you see in the background, Harold Perkins, number 10, doing some work with some backers back here as well. You see Greg Penn there as well. So, yeah, just individual drills, basically. Kobe Fields, number 25, and that's obviously Matt House right there. So it's fun. It's obviously fun. You're getting some real good footage here. Via Tiger Details did a really good job with all of this. And you also see Jared Small in the background. Don't count out Jared Small as a potential playing time opportunity guy. Wes Weeks also in the background. So, yeah, very deep linebacker room, especially now that you throw Harold Perkins in there. And right here, this is the nickels working together. Number 19, Jordan Allen, working with his former high school teammate, Sage Ryan. And then in the background, your starting nickel, more than likely, Greg Brooks. So, very fun, fascinating stuff. Let's go. Boom! I'm looking at you. Yes, you, right now. So, let's actually have an open discussion here at the end about the quarterback battle. Some good, some not so good, and why this could be a little bit more complicated than play the best player, right? Because the truth is, number one, you don't always pick the right quarterback. It's really hard to do so without any preseason game or game rep situations. So there is a little bit of guessing that needs to be done on LSU's part on who they feel is the best quarterback for them to go out and win this game versus Florida State. Now, notice how I phrase that question. Who starts game one might not be the best quarterback, but the guy you feel gives you the best opportunity to go out there and get a season-opening win against the Florida State Seminoles. And if you go by that logic, the answer is Jayden Daniels, because he does have the most experience. This is going to be a jittery offensive line with a lot of those guys up front making their first ever start in an LSU uniform. This could be a jittery game for the coaching staff, obviously in a new, environment. And the truth is, Jayden Daniels has far more experience than any of these other quarterbacks, including Miles Brennan has only 1 year experience going into a season knowing he's starting the season opener. This is Jayden Daniels' 4th go-around. So with his mobility and his playmaking ability, he might not be the best quarterback, but he does give you more than likely the highest floor in terms of going out there and getting it done versus Florida State. Now, that's not me saying he can't go out there and stink up the joint or light him up Michael Vick style for 1,000 rushing yards and 3 passing touchdowns and so on and so on. But the truth is, I'm starting to feel more and more as we move closer to game one that Jayden Daniels is going to be the quarterback that trots out there. I know my gut is still telling me Miles because I don't know why I feel that way, but it does seem like Jayden, just based on what I'm hearing coming from camp, that he is going to be the first guy coming out. But I still stand by what I've said about Garrett Nussmeier. This guy's looked the best. I know it's a limited sample. I know you can't get too carried away with the spring game where the coverages were obviously very bland, but he's looked the best, and I think it's kind of hard to argue otherwise. And I do want to share a conversation that I had with a quarterback coach earlier today who is not at all affiliated with LSU football. So a little bit earlier, and you can go back and actually watch these throws. You saw that throw that Jayden Daniels had to Malik Neighbors that was low, and then you also saw that wobbler on a rollout, and you're reading right now a harsh criticism from a guy who has no ties whatsoever to any of this. Now, as you could tell, this is far more advanced for my personal analysis, right? And once again, these guys in the building know way more about football than I do and know everything that this guy's talking about. They may not agree with what this coach in particular has to say, but let's be honest, those balls weren't the prettiest. And this is something that is just kind of known about Jayden, especially towards the end of last year. His mechanics did disintegrate. He did miss throws. And in the spring game, he was 3-9, and the intermediate stuff was very all over the place, honestly. And there were a lot of drops. I will admit that, trust me. But that's just the truth, right? So that does need to get cleaned up, but Mike Denbrock did say that they are reevaluating his footwork and getting all those different mechanics down. And, you do see him, dapping up Brian Kelly there in the background. It is very interesting to see those things. But as far as like leadership and going out there and getting you a win in that first game, as of right now, I think the coaching staff is going to feel most comfortable giving him the start. Now, that doesn't mean Miles or Garrett won't get the opportunity to play. They will get the opportunity to play. But if Jayden lights it up, he may not ever relinquish it. And let's be honest, Jayden does have the talent to do that. We saw what he did at Florida State when he had primetime receivers with Brandon Ayuk and Frank Darby. He might have a better room here, and I'll just say it, he does have a better room here with Kayshawn and Malik and Jack. So, yeah, we'll see. So as you can tell, I really do mean this. Mike Denbrock and Brian Kelly, they are not lying to you when they say this. And I've gotten this pretty well hammered down that there is not a quarterback who has separated himself just yet. A lot of coaches would have the motive of saying that because, they want to keep all the quarterbacks around and locked in. But the truth is no one separated themselves. So there you go. Let me know what you think down below. Hopefully it was a fun practice video. It should have been a recruiting video. Obviously, Colin Jackson pushing his commitment date back to Friday. Hopefully it is still LSU. I still feel pretty good about that. And we'll see you on the live stream on Tuesday night. Let's go. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom. Oh, it is a Taco Tuesday. Night 2 as well. Let's go.